Hey everybody, Dave and Jamie Womack here from BirdTricks with a special update on Sunny. You guys have had a lot of questions, you've written in, you've left comments, and we kind of just left you hanging. So we thought we had some explaining to do. And I do want to give a little spoiler alert. There's actually a really, really happy ending to the story. But before we get to the happy part of the ending, we want to explain kind of what happened.
Yeah, so a lot of you know how we do things here on YouTube and Patreon. So Patreon started by really funding and sponsoring Project Birds, which Sunny was a project bird. So after we gave you guys all the, I think it was 4 or 5 videos here on YouTube, the rest of the content was going out on Patreon. So they were getting updates. We just never made that public on YouTube or edited together like a full video. They were getting a lot of behind the scenes. So do you want to break the bad news to this part of the story? Because where we left off with you guys on YouTube, for those of you that do remember, is we had just fully imped Sunny, which means we gave him brand new feathers. Now he came to us from a hoarding situation. His wings were totally butchered by himself. So he chopped his wings off. It was real awful looking. And we raised the money to imp him, so he had brand new flight feathers. So yeah, we got donated feathers from clients and friends, and we took him to one of the best animal hospitals to do the imping. They did a fantastic job. He had these brand new wings. We were super hopeful. We're getting ready for a flight trip. And then he looked at his wings and was like, oh, this is out of place. And he chewed them all back off as if we had clipped him. So it really, for me in that moment, I was just devastated because it was like, we just gave him this gift that like gave him his freedom back and he didn't want it. And so for me, the dream of like flight training him was gone. And that was really what I wanted to do with this bird. And so we thought, okay, no worries. We'll put him into a trick training course. And then we had more bad news. So we had the whole imping process completely sponsored, which was amazing. And it was actually not as expensive as we were expecting. And so with the extra money that we had donated, we ended up running full blood work and labs because we had this whole issue getting those from the original vet that Sunny came from. And we found out that his liver was in very poor condition, like no more treats. Poor condition, going on a prescription pellet for fatty liver disease. He was going on supplements. It was a lot, and it was more than I was comfortable putting on our caretakers for when we leave. Normally I don't have an issue with my caretakers taking care of project birds, but there's no sort of medication or prescriptions or any of these sort of things where it's like you have to make sure he gets it involved, and that was pretty overwhelming for us. It was something I expected early on that we didn't get the results of until later when I realized we had never actually run his liver values. That was a rude awakening because we kind of looked at ourselves like, we want to do this trick training course. How do you trick train this bird without using treats? Where are we at? We kind of felt like we needed to prioritize his health before you could just say, I really want to train this bird. Like, so what? You need to get the bird healthy first.
Yeah, right? So unfortunately, that's kind of where his story came to an end. And we hadn't really shared a lot. As Jamie explained, we shared it on Patreon, but we didn't really share it here on YouTube until we really had more of the well-rounded data and all the evidence to be able to say, this is why we ended up coming to this conclusion. We just really couldn't trick train him and use any sort of treats until we got that dietary issue solved. So we took him back down to the rescue and we said, hey, here's kind of the new thing. Here's his prescription medication and pellet that he needs to be on. And we are very happy because he has recently been adopted by an awesome family who I know is going to continue on with all of his medical history, which they're aware of. They're able to continue that moving forward and just keep him healthy and happy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of you had asked like, well, what if, you know, he does this whole prescription thing and then it looks good again, and then would you guys take him back? And what we were told or advised to do from the vet was to check him every 6 months and see how his liver values were doing just from everything. And we kind of went through some ups and downs with that. When I first put him on the prescription pellet, he actually stopped eating his fresh food. So we went through all of that. I was working on conditioning him with handling and bathing and things on the side that I was trying to find reinforcers for while also working on that. So I was really grateful to Ronnie's. It was actually our trip to Africa that like sparked all of it. And I was like, we're leaving. This is a big deal. I'm super uncomfortable leaving him in the care of anyone but you guys. could we just bring him back and have you guys see this through? And then the fact that they were able to do an adoption was amazing, because we visited him a couple times and been like, how's everything going? How are things looking? And they didn't have any data as far as like veterinary data to give us yet. So we were just really relieved when we found out that he's been adopted, and they're so happy. And like, we felt like at least the efforts that we put in for handling and just basic stuff transferred to somebody else. Because I remember when we showed up at the rescue and they were like, whoa.
Yeah, they couldn't believe that we could handle him. And just that he was like nice, you know, because he hadn't really been, you know, he's one of these birds that if you had to get him out of the cage, you could, but you need to go get somebody who doesn't mind being bitten. And that's kind of where he came from. I mean, he was in a pretty bad situation prior to going to the rescue and then to us. So it felt really great to be able to make the steps that we did. And not every story is going to have the same type of ending, but I don't know. It was just super cool to be able to spend that time with him and get him far enough to where he could be adopted.
Yeah.
And so couldn't be happier that he's in good hands.
He's the type of bird where I felt silly doing the updates on Patreon sometimes, but like if you could appreciate where he came from, then you could appreciate these little videos. But I was just watching them back today to refresh my memory on where we had left off with everybody. And one of my videos was like, check it out. I had this breakthrough. Like, look at my handling with him. And it was literally a video of me walking out to the aviary, opening it up, offering my hand. He steps with his foot here. I close my thumb on his one foot. He gives me the other foot. I close him on my hand. He lets go of the side of the cage and I like walk him out. I'm like, what? Killing it! Woo! Like, I was super stoked because although he was good with you, he wasn't good with most other people. And so I was like, I want to make sure that this translates to everybody. And so my videos were like that on Patreon, just being like, woo, woo. So excited. But I think that if you guys can relate to that and have a bird that's just really difficult and coming from a situation where you just have a lot to work on, then you can relate to those sort of breakthroughs. Like, that was a really big deal. And I started learning how to use my environment as the reinforcement for him. Mm-hmm. It made me a better trainer to like get more creative like that. But ultimately for what we wanted to do, it wasn't an alignment. Yeah,
and I think it really highlights too, whenever you're working with new birds, and it's critical to have that the metrics, the data of like, what is their health actually like? And so had we not done that, we probably would have done more harm by giving too many treats without knowing that he actually had a liver issue. So it's good to have all that input so that you can make the right decisions based off a good education and not just like, well, this is what I want for the bird, because that doesn't always align.
And something interesting that I found through collecting data, because this was something patrons asked me, because they were just like, does he allow the feathers to grow in and then take them off, or does he take them off while they're coming in so that you never get to see how pretty they are? And we were devastated with the imping. Like, he went to town. Like, once he started, he went to town on those. And it happened very quickly. So we were kind of depressed. Yeah. Devastated.
Yeah, it like crushed my soul. I'm like, here's this cool opportunity for this bird, and just...
So we were super bummed. And then he started to grow his new feathers in. Like, he started to grow his flight feathers in, which I was like, yes, this is super cool. And I took pictures and I was sharing them on Patreon. I was like, check it out. He has 2 flight feathers in. This is looking awesome. Like, he actually looked pretty where, what do they call it when they have those bird shows and birds are actually clipped, but they don't look like they're clipped?
It's like a show clip, I think they call it.
Yeah, something like that. So he kind of almost looked like that with, he was getting 2 nice feathers, and I was like, yay. And then data collecting, he would wait between 5 and 6 days, and then he would take them all out.
It was it was the strangest thing.
Come in, and you'd think, oh my gosh, he's leaving them alone. This is looking awesome. And then he'd take them all out. It was like a massacre. He would just take them all out. And it was every 5 to 6 days. So it was really interesting of a pattern where he didn't do it every day. And one of the things that I really struggled with is I started trying to train him to play with toys, because our go-to as trainers, and like, I think anybody online will say, oh, you have a plucking bird or a barbering bird, get it toys, teach it to play with toys instead of its feathers. What I noticed was when Sunny came to us, he didn't really play with a lot of toys. And as I got him to play and interact with toys, he would actually start to mess with his feathers more. Whereas if I didn't work on it and didn't focus on it, he didn't play with toys, he didn't mess with himself as much.
And now looking back, that could have been related to the liver issue.
It could have. Yes, it
Yeah.
totally could have. And so for me, I was just going through these very highs and lows and being like, I know what I'm going to do. I don't know what I'm doing. I know what I should work on. I shouldn't be working on this. I've sabotaged everything. It was really difficult to navigate that. And so I learned a lot. And I think that's the point with Project Birds is that we learn a lot. Hopefully you guys feel like you learn a lot, but we did feel like you deserved an update, and Sunny got his happy ending, and that's really what matters. And these parrot rescues are doing amazing things. So we hope that Sunny thrives in his new home. We hope that his liver makes a recovery to some extent, if it can, and that they are all living really well and happily together.
Happily ever after.
Happily ever after. Yeah.
So as you heard, we do all of our Project Parrots over on Patreon. So if you'd like to support us supporting other Project Parrots so we can save parrots one person at a time, check us out over on Patreon/BirdTricks so you can see the other successful journeys we have with a lot of the other Project Birds.